to start off on the defense.
Yeah, so when I said that NIP would benefit from starting on the defense, it was just forget that I said that. I mean, I know this was NIP's map choice anyway, so it makes sense that it worked out that way. But going into the operator bans, FURIA start by banning out Hibana.
Quickly followed by a good old-fashioned Thatcher ban. Would we be on Oregon if we didn't see at least Maverick or Hibana and Thatcher banned out? Does give opportunity for these defenders to choose what they would like to remove, as Nip to take away the mirror. FURIA with this last ban. I would anticipate maybe a Valkyrie. Oh, we're going to actually go for a Wamai. Dangerous stuff that the Valkyrie has been left in. We know players on NIP are capable of with that operator, but of course Wamai and his magnets just proving a little bit too much to be ignored.
This is actually something that we've seen quite a lot of over the last couple of days, is Wamai making it into that the ban list of operators here in Brazil. It's something that I think in other regions, ever since he got his nerf and lost his shield, he sort of dipped out of that a bit because he fell out of favor. But in this region, definitely one that they want to continue to keep off the board. And it makes sense because a lot of attacking lineups don't bring a ton of flashes anymore, especially since Ashe lost hers. So I totally understand it. And actually that was something we did see NIP, particularly yesterday, would use a lot of their frag grenades to clear ADSs and clear Wamai discs and things like that. So Wamai off the board, that might not be such a problem. And FURIA, for their first site, have decided to go to Meeting and Kitchen.
Meeting and Kitchen as a first site bomb choice here on Oregon Geo. What is going on? We would typically expect to see the basement or dorms, or even maybe Kitchen at a push, but certainly not Meeting. So FURIA obviously trying to do something to throw NIP off the scent, looking to maybe gain an early advantage here in terms of round. Going to be holding upstairs quite heavily, as the attic is a very crucial area. The attic hatch being somewhere that defenders can choose to play, and quite a nice advantage and line of sight onto any attackers looking to push on in. How will NIP choose to solve this problem? Well, it looks initially as though they're going to go for a bit of a west side clear, but they do need to gain control of that upstairs.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because NIP were the only team of them and Santos yesterday who actually chose to do a Meeting defense themselves, but they lost it. So Santos's attack was successful on that. I'm wondering if NIP on this side of the coin will be able to do the same thing. You'd think that since they have some kind of understanding of the site, because they chose to go there themselves, that maybe they would. And as you say, clearing out the top floor is something that they are setting their sights on for now. Lender present here up in the attic, and he's actually got protection of the shield behind him, as well as the ADS right by his side.
Airjob's going to get placed out there by Psycho as he looks to try and secure the flanks. Everybody moving fairly cautiously at the moment on that top floor for NIP, as they don't want to make any early mistakes, and they need to try and do the best to gather as much information as possible. But so far, Lender is doing a brilliant job of soaking a lot of those drones up. He's managed to take a couple of them out of action, with the addition of Rare as well, who is inside of dormitories. Rare's got really good lines of sight onto both the top of White Stairs and into Generator Room, and it's just forcing NIP to make these slower pushes. Rare really looking to play quite passively here, as you can see the drones flying past him, but I think his location's known. He has got rotates and he has got options. Beautiful control there coming from downstairs to above, as Toxic Babe canisters stem the flow of these attackers pushing into that top floor as the time continues to tick. But in the meanwhile, the first kill will go in favour of NIP, and the second as Muzi hits a dirty drop shot headshot.
Looking very comfortable so far at NIP as they take down those first two players. And with Fancy actually being the first death for FURIA, it really plays into that point I was making earlier about that you know, he should be fragging a bit more than he currently seems to be at the moment. Lender is going to get his revenge, though, and avenge his duo, and that'll be Muzi, the next one to fall, so the Ash removed off the map. But we're in the final 30 seconds of the game. Lender still present upstairs, but he can just rotate down onto the site, and NIP are going to have to make their move in very shortly.
High's looking to make a rotate down and maybe make use of some of his yokai drones, as when push comes to shove, they are going to be extremely valuable. Kamikaze looking to try and get that plant down, but there is still utility to deny. It's enough to force him, in fact, off that plant and instead into some gunfights. He finds the first, but gets cut down in the second, with the diffuser cold on the ground and Lender watching it. It's very unlikely for NIP that they're going to make anything happen. The sixth man steps in once again, and FURIA take round number 1.
Unable to successfully clear out all of the players that they were looking for, I think, was the primary reason for their failure at the end there, because having that presence in the green hall and having Lender upstairs for as long as he was and retaining the control over meeting meant that NIP was still playing very closely in around kitchen. That's where the Toxic Babe canisters were being thrown out, and that of course put Kamikaze off. It influenced his positioning, and because of those players who were still in those aforementioned positions, he just walked straight into their line of sight. And in that kind of position, you're very limited. And that's exactly where they found themselves. So not quite thorough enough that they would have been looking for. And FURIA are going to be heading down to a more standard site.
I think FURIA can be really pleased with themselves after that first round. And in part, pleased with themselves for how well they held on to that top floor. They did everything right. The decision-making to stay for maybe a little bit longer than was necessary as well, just all tied in beautifully to the round coming toward them. But you've got to ask questions of NIP, and why was no pressure coming in from the attic side? Why was there nobody on Kids Rappel? Why was there no one even on the big window? They're all areas that could have been pressured and could have been pinched and just forced FURIA to feel a little bit more uncomfortable up there. Now, we saw this sort of thing yesterday from NIP and their very one-dimensional attacks on this site as well, and I'm looking toward the freezer area in particular. It was somewhere that they really banged their head against, and the rounds that they did win down there were rounds that were won off the back of sheer gunfights.
Completely agree. Now, attacking onto this site is something that NIP did, I think, 3 times yesterday. And every single time they went for the same approach, and that was a freezer take, pushing down the freezer stairs or into the hatch every single time, and it worked out 2 of those times for them. And a lot of it came down to Pino and Muzi's aggression, being able to clear out some of those players that they needed to and pushing straight in. But if they go for the same thing, I fear that it can just become very easily read by any defending team that NIP find themselves going up against. It doesn't necessarily look right now like that's what they're going for, but you never know. The laundry hatch is being opened, and it looked like there were some players up towards the north side as well, on the tower stairs, up in meeting, wanting to ensure all these hatches are open to provide that pressure. But as for the take itself, are they going to go for the same thing?
Some dangerous yokais out that Highs is going to retreat on back and maybe just give his team a little bit of an early indicator as to where the push was coming from, and now he can rein them in a little bit at the halfway point in the round and position them for use later on. NIP, they're not moving directly toward this freezer at the moment. Instead, a little bit more concerned with making sure that flanks are secure. Airjab's getting placed out there by Psycho, and it looks as though he's in fact going to turn his attention over toward blue. We've got Dino on these rear stage stairs, and he's going to look to try and challenge onto Pillar. I think there's some drones working on ahead of him, but we can also see yokai drones in the distance that are going to be giving information when the time comes. NIP could be setting themselves up here to run out of time once again, as it is continuing to tick. 50 seconds left and still all 10 players alive on the server. Utility dump coming in now. Rare's seen a huge portion of damage, and is it going to be Pino's time to strike? Muzi pushes his way on through, but Fancy's going to find the first over onto Psycho. And NIP have got himself established here, but what are they able to do with it? There's still hard walls that could do with being opened, and there's only 30 seconds remaining to do it in. Fancy still on elbow, could be looking for a bit of an aggressive flank here, so I'm not sure if that is being directly watched or even if there is an air jab there. A nade comes through, a real good heads up play to push on through, but no, gets caught caught out going into a prone animation, and Muzi is there to take him down. Time is ticking even further now as Highs has to resort to the gun as opposed to the Yokai drones and clear shop. Gets a team kill in the meantime, but Lender there with the last onto Muzi. The team kill will mean nothing as FURIA confirm a second successful round.
A second example, I think, of NIP trying to forego the need to clear everybody out. The fact that Muzi was positioned the way he was, and actually, as you were saying, I don't know if they're actively watching it. Muzi had been watching it for a decent amount of time at that point. You could see the drone that was coming forward as well, where they knew that they hadn't cleared out elbow, so they just had a guy watching in case someone came out of elbow. And this is the kind of thing I mean, is traditionally you would have a specific effort be made early on to clear that area out, or at the very least force that defender back into the site and reinforce it off, so you know you don't have to watch that flank. That's when we saw them use the nade to try and force, I think it was Fancy who was playing the Warden, to force Fancy forward so that they could kill him. Yeah, they eventually got him, but you're not meant to be worrying about that flank or that clear that late on in the round. And it does seem like NIP just don't want to bother clearing everything out, because even when they successfully brought him down, it was the players over towards Laundry, over towards Freezer, who could collapse in on them because they only had control within Pillar and just bring the rest of the players down. It is insufficient to be able to take a full site. And NIP, you know, it's exemplified by the scoreline right now.
The thing that I really like about the way that FURIA are playing at the moment as well is that NIP are burning a lot of this time themselves. FURIA are sure adding on to that puzzle and that headache of the time sink, but FURIA aren't getting sort of aggressive. They're not getting impatient with things. They're really taking the time, and they're knowing that if we just keep continuing to do this, we're going to continue to pick up round after round. We don't have to play very aggressively into these guys. We can play quite passively, because at the moment, NIP are the ones that are losing a large portion of the time, and it's really costing them as we get into the later parts of the round. That's something that really has to change, because leaving it down to the last second is good and it looks great and it's flashy, but it isn't reliable, it's not repeatable, it isn't something that you can continually do time after time. I'm wondering now if this is a bit more of an opportunity for NIP to move slightly quicker, because there is a bit less to clear in terms of getting into key walls. You can see there, Kamikaze, he's already inside of Closet.
NIP have lost a ton of drones. What the hell is that? I just looked over to the side of my screen and only Pino is holding on to one. I'm not sure how many Geminis he has left either. We'll be able to see that when the full UI comes in, but he may have used a couple already. Also, bear in mind that they have brought a lot of frags, so expect them to be using them, but they could still be eaten up by things like ADSs if they have not all been cleared, as only 3 flashes have been brought. Psycho might not be in a position to deal with them. Something that we saw from NIP yesterday, but it just means that right now they don't have a ton of information to go off of. That could already slow, or further slow their already slow play style and put them in a lot more risky positions, especially with these roams that are still downstairs.
Muzi looking to try and bait somebody out there with the help of Pino and the clone, but it isn't gonna happen. It speaks further into what I was saying earlier about FURIA's patience here. There's 50 seconds left and there's still all 10 players alive. We've rarely seen early kills or, you know, frequent first bloods. It's been down to these last 40 when the action started to happen. This time, however, it is going in the favour for the time being toward NIP. Fancy tries to respond a little bit, and Air Jab is going to catch one of them out on those armory stairs, but Lender can make his way through unaided. Muzi's going to find one over onto Highs, as this is starting to look a little bit better for NIP. It really is all down to Lender now, but he finds his first over onto Kamikaze. Psycho's going to start getting that plant down. Now would be the time to push. Effectively, you're in a 1 versus 1 for the next few seconds. Can he get this important kill over onto Pino? No, Pino, he isn't going to thirst after that. He's going to play quite passively and just dip himself back onto white stairs. The plant being confirmed. It doesn't seem as though Lender has the intel. Goes for the swing, but Pino's better in that situation. And finally, just finally, NIP put one on the board.
Yeah, they managed to take a lot of the members of FURIA down when it mattered. And even though Lender got those 2 kills at the end, when you're going up against a guy who's planting or a potential post plant, you know that it's going to be covered. And I think he was aware, or at least had the idea, that there was someone at the top of white stairs who was covering that angle. And he didn't exactly know where the plant was being made. Kamikaze was over by the bunk beds towards big window, and it's kind of hard to deal with that sort of cover when it's just you on your own. But that was the first death for Lender, I have to say. He was the player who I called out at the start as being one to watch from FURIA, and so far in this game he's definitely been doing his job.
Yeah, Lender put a shift in yesterday as well, really standing up and being counted. I don't think FURIA are going to be too concerned here. 2-1 after 3 rounds isn't bad going at all. It means they can go back to this meeting site that they favoured over in round number 1. This was the site where we saw an exceptional top floor hold from FURIA. They really stood their ground up there. It was exactly what we often talk about in terms of it's all well and good holding somewhere, but really get your most out of that position. And they did just exactly that. I believe it was Rare that played inside of dormitories, Lender inside of this area here, just inside of attic. And NIP really struggled with a very one-dimensional push coming through from this south side. Now, what we asked for and what I'd like to see would be some pressure on side of Kids Rappel, some pressure inside of Big Tower, maybe a bit of attic control coming out here from NIP, because they're going to struggle if they look to rely on just winning gunfights and getting picks, because that isn't something that FURIA are giving up lightly.
Attic was that really big problem for them before, because they didn't clear Lender out of there, and it meant that all that control could still be retained of meeting by FURIA right until the very end, and it meant that Kamikaze just didn't have the opportunity to plant. It was too pressurizing in the kitchen, which is the only place that NIP actually had available to them. They're trying to drone out here, and they still got plenty of time. This is very early in the round still, so just getting a lot of that information, but you can see that there are still players of FURIA upstairs. At very least there is one, and I actually think is maybe above a hatch or something as he was looking down. Maybe there are vertical holes that have been opened up, but either way you could see a downwards angle being held.
Very slow and cautious has been the order of the day for this map so far. Not much pressure being shown onto these players inside a site. Miracle getting some godly Z-ping information there for him to take out a drone that was in a drone hole. That's going to give him the surety when we come toward the dying stages, but not immediately coming under any direct pressure. However, someone that will be coming under pressure is Fancy, as Psycho manages to find first blood. Nice and early considering how these rounds have been going. Has Lender been accounted for? Look at the positioning that the FURIA players are in now to try and get this off as a refrag. We've not only got Lender, but we've also got Rare playing upstairs. He has since dipped off, but the intent and the thought was there.
Well, all of that information is going to be passed along, but actually Rare is the next one to go down at Muzi's hands. But Lender's still holding on to this angle and could be punishing NIP. He's actually going to just push on straight forward, knowing he's looking at the camera, and that's Psycho who's taken down. Now it's put in a 3 versus 3, Miracle adding on with the SMG-11, and we're heading very close to the final 30 seconds. Are NIP going to be able to do anything about this, knowing that there's still this utility and these players about? Out comes the Toxic Babe canister, which is something that was problematic for them before, and you could see the breach that's been made onto the wall. Muzi using some of his utility, and maybe he can hold these vertical angles at the very least as we head into the final 15 seconds, and Julio is taking a ton of damage as well. Muzi knows there might be a player here in security, but he actually gets C4'd straight into oblivion, and this looks like it could be FURIA's map as Kamikaze's trying to go for the plant, but these last 2 players of FURIA just move straight on in, and in the exact same place that Kamikaze got punished back in round number 1, it happens all over again.
History repeating itself there in round number 4, as FURIA gave us yet another solid hold of that meeting, and NIP just looked a long way off the pace of that round. Such a great job on the side of FURIA, ensuring that those trades go through. It really does fill my heart with a lot of joy when I see teams that are actively trying to get those trades off, and that's exactly what we saw from FURIA there. Their information exchange second to none. It gives them loads of breathing room now going downstairs into laundry, and they've really started to streak a bit of a lead here. I think you could have asked all of us on the desk what we would have thought the first, how we would have thought the first 4 rounds of this would go, and I'm not sure any of us would have said 3-1 to FURIA.
No, this feels very alien, doesn't it? And at the very least, I feel very validated that I said that I thought NIP would do better starting on the defense, and right now their attack has not looked so fortuitous.
I mean, you can't be wrong, can you?
At the very least, at least I'm, right. Well, actually, I might not be right. You never know. I could be incredibly wrong. But either way, the point at hand is that NIP are going to have to pick something up. FURIA returning back down into the basement, and NIP's attacking strategy last time was different to what we saw yesterday. They didn't go for the freezer, they went for a blue take. However, they went for a very, I almost want to say lazy blue take. And it's not that they were playing lazy, it's that they didn't commit to any kind of substantial clear, even elbow. And they were pushing in through blue. And it came to punish them, because as soon as they tried to move into sight after they took pillar control, everyone else just swarmed onto them. And I think they are probably learning at this point that against FURIA, that's not something that's gonna work.
Muzi was a player that I highlighted in the pre-show as being a very, very consistent opening kill getter. Not a very consistent opening death getter. So far, we're yet to see...
Technical terms, by the way.
Technical terms. We're yet to see the fruits of that. But all may change when NIP get onto the defense. It is Oregon. It is slightly weighing in the defender favor, especially with the way that the bans came on out with Thatcher being removed, as is the norm. Still no excuse for NIP. There is opportunity to get some rounds. We've got a nice look at the scoreboard there briefly. I'll take advantage of this. We can see that only Muzi on above 5 kills. So really trying his best on the side of NIP, but the kills not coming easily for the people that we would usually expect.
Yeah, it feels very alien to look at it and see that. Meanwhile, Lender, I think, was on 6 kills. So really showing up in the server right now. There's still plenty of rounds to go, and you can see he's just watching onto this hatch, but moving into pillar, taking some refuge behind the shield. And I suspect that it's specifically stationed there because they want to prevent NIP from pushing in from blue. That shield actually was there before and wasn't cleared out by NIP. But look at this. This looks way more characteristic of what we've seen of this team, sending their attentions into freezer. Pino getting ready with the frag grenade that doesn't get eaten up, so that may have removed some utility, and they can try and hold the angle in through the open freezer wall.
He's got information there. He's got a Z ping. He's just trying to make something happen and to try and find the angle, but I believe he's probably going to struggle. We're seeing FURIA do what they've done oh so well, oh so often, and that is just play quite passively. They're holding a real half-court defense here as Pino aggressively pushes up. He's going to take a bit of damage from his own nade, but the kills finally start to come in the favour of NIP. Muzi on the front end of that, but will be taken down as a trade as Lender steps up to the plate and says, you might be the biggest fragger for your team, but today I'm the biggest fragger for mine. And he manages to take him down. Miracle using his Toxic Babe canisters that will render the diffuser cold, and Psycho is effectively in a 1 versus 4. He hasn't got a great deal of hope in this one. 10 seconds left remain. A Banshee is going to give the game away. Miracle, SMG 11, headshot to finish.
The reason I got so excited by that Lender 2K is because that is the exact play that worked for NIP yesterday. Pino and Muzi together, pushing through into freezer, being aggressive, won them the round. It's what made that unlikely situation work out for them, and Lender is the player who apparently has the power to stop that. And it was a really nice 2K from Miracle at the end too, yeah, but because that was very specifically the power position that NIP liked to use, that has been thrown back in their face. They came for this strategy in that round just gone because they knew it worked for them yesterday. It's what they like to do. It's because they knew their blue push didn't work and they could go back to what was comfortable for them, and their comfort got completely thrown back in their face. And I think even though it's just one round, that sends a really big message to NIP that it doesn't really matter what you think is going to work for you and what you think you're used to and what you think you can do well. FURIA is a team who are going to make that really difficult for you.
It's something that we spoke about earlier on, Gio, and that is the one-dimensional nature of NIP's attacks onto Laundry when they do choose solely the freezer route. And if those big, impactful kills don't come in from the likes of Pino and Muzi, who we expect them to come from, then it just doesn't happen. And Lender was really able to shut that down. I think FURIA now have picked this map for a reason. They've said, you know what, we've seen you play on here and we're really happy to play you on here again, you know, despite seeing you play on here yesterday. So they've obviously been away, they've obviously put a lot of work in the last 24 hours or so, and it really is coming to show. Now, this is the last round for FURIA on the defense. If they could go 5-1 here, I think that would be massive for their mental.
Oh, it would be absolutely huge. I mean, on Oregon, that is the only map that I can think of that would be considered standard would be Theme Park, and, you know, RIP Theme Park, forever in our hearts, but no longer in the map pool. So you wouldn't expect that from any of the maps really that we have currently. For that to happen against NIP would be massive, especially as FURIA are one of those teams that probably get underrated by quite a lot of people because of how they performed last year. So this is just great for them so far. Now, once again, of course, they are on the top floor. They've got the information that they can use because of the Valkyrie, and also, I suppose, because of the mute. They can deny the information to NIP. And NIP have had a lot of problems so far with losing drones and being left to kind of face check and just play aggressively and hope for the best in some of these rounds.
Yeah, we're not even at the halfway point, and already over half of the drones have been expended. I think as I started that point, we just saw another one tick off the counter at the top right of your screen. But Miracle's going to fall as a nice nade thrown as an impact from Pino hits its mark. We haven't seen a lot of use of those nades so far, at least in terms of getting onto players. So always good to see a nade landing, especially onto a smoke. That's something that FURIA have really lent heavily into, is that denial, is that wasting time of those toxic babe canisters. And this round, they aren't going to have that luxury. Now the vertical control can start as Psycho's got himself into kitchen and servers as he looks to put that skeleton key to use and see if there's anybody he can bait out. Pino's going to gain himself a boatload of info as he puts one of his Geminis up through. A C4 toss going to swing and miss, but Rare picks up the kill over onto Psycho. That's now no longer any more vertical destruction from that skeleton key, and it's going to be left on the hands of Muzi to push up white stairs and gain some kills. He's going to be looking toward Julio and Kamikaze to come and have an impact as well, because at the moment he's a one-man army inside of the site. Really looking to try and challenge quite aggressively. Doesn't have the diffuser in hand. Instead draws for the pistol. Maybe could do with just taking a moment to take some stock. Candela's come in, and that's going to provide enough cover for him to hit a reload and maybe, just maybe, try and re-challenge this angle. Diffuser still in the capable hands of Kamikaze as Rare looks to make a rotation up, finds a beautiful C4 kill, but is traded out in return. Fancy steps up to the plate, highs with a pre-placed, and FURIA clutch yet another round. 5-1 on Oregon on defense.
What a fantastic way to end their first half, and also to kind of make up for the FaZe Black Dragons game that we were so sure was going to be the banger of the day and that everything else would be very predictable. This game has not been predictable in the slightest, and I think now that NIP are on the defense, this is where we could start to actually see things even out. I don't think this is going to end up being a 7-1 or a 7-2 or even maybe a 7-3. I think this has the potential to go to overtime, because this is where NIP are going to see some of those strengths come in. Now, of course, I could be wrong. This could end up just being a complete blowout. FURIA run away with it and embarrass the hell out of NIP. But if it's going to be a potential for a barn burner, now the sides have switched is going to be when that is. And this is not the game that we anticipated that to be. And to me, that's really exciting.
Already we are being treated to some of this LATAM lunacy that Ace often speaks of. This really wasn't anywhere that we expected to be. A scoreline of 5-1 for FURIA, but full credit to them. They have come very well prepared here to Oregon today, and they've had an answer for just about everything NIP has had to throw at them. But as you say, Gio, this is where it really turns around on its head, because you've now got to deal with the dangerous prospect that is these NIP players on defense. We saw what they were capable of yesterday. They're going to be trying similar here and now. and they're not going to be too worried about coming back off such a great deficit. For the guys on FURIA, it's time to knuckle down and try and lock in 2 rounds wherever they can.
NIP bringing both the Aruni and the Ella, which is going to make it hard for FURIA to push in to the site, or really wherever they decide to place the Grishmots and the Storia gates. I want to see if they are having the same very offensive positioning in that elbow area and across tarps where they positioned Muzi before back yesterday. All the way back yesterday. Because what they had is they had a Goyo shield, they had a regular shield as well, and they have one regular shield in play, brought by the Ella, I would assume. And so they had the inventory to be able to actually do that. And it worked really well. They held that position for quite a long time too, without being cleared out and without forcing Muzi back. So it's something that NIP like to do and lean into that aggression. But whether or not FURIA even fall victim to that, because it doesn't look like they're going for much of a blue take, given that they're up here towards the freezer stairs.
Freezer push is a very popular one here in LATAM, but it does need to be done in conjunction with other things. You cannot just expect to sort of beachhead your way in through freezer, as there is just too much to burn and too many angles to be held. We can already see a bit of a rotation coming from the guys on FURIA, but there is a little bit of uncertainty, it seems, in the camp, as all the players for NIP are on the site. They're just looking for their entry. They're looking for their way in and what that is going to look like. And they're just going to try and gather a little bit of intel on his drone for himself, it seems. He's maybe going to push his way down Laundry Stairs, see if there's any sort of angles that he can find. It's seemingly very free for him at the moment. There's no Banshee, there's nothing that's going to give the game away, no Aruni gate for him to burn, and he could quite possibly just set up on a nice little crossfire here.
You can see all the players of NIP as well changing their positions and where their attention is. There's just all of them. It's kind of like you got pigeons who just turn around when they just hear something, and immediately they're moving forward, preparing themselves for this more of a south side push. Lender going in for 1 kill, but doesn't quite manage it through the soft wall. However, he does now know of the position of one of the players of NIP who is in there. Sending in the lifeline, opens up the Storia gate, but Fancy will be the first casualty. Kamikaze taking that one for himself. And we're in the final 15 seconds already, Ollie, and it's going to be a backwards and forwards, it looks like, because FURIA have no choice but to push on forward. Muzi getting 1 aggressive kill, and NIP getting the rest still quite aggressively, making it fairly hard for FURIA to push on through. That's another round on the board for NIP.
That's a classic. Let's take a round to just remove all pace out of this game. Let's take a round. Let's just sit in sight for borderline the entirety of the round, and we're just going to hold really hard angles, and we're just going to slay them as soon as they push their way on through. And that's exactly what we saw there from NIP. There wasn't too much coming from the FURIA side of things. As you said, the laser gates really coming into their own in those dying few seconds as well. It just makes everything so much more pressured and so much more difficult to try and work with. And NIP have gone, right, this is where we pick up our first round. We get a nice easy one down in Laundry. Nobody move. We're just going to win the round by basically standing still because they're not physically going to be able to shoot at us. And all of a sudden, the momentum just saps a little bit from the side of FURIA. Now, they've got a different problem to solve. They're going upstairs into dormitories, and NIP are starting to think, you know what, 1 round at a time, and we will take this one.
Yep, very interested to see how this is going to go, if this is the turning of the tables or if that last round was simply a fluke. My suspicions tell me that it's going to start to even out and this could be quite a long game. Of course, NIP are yet to prove that to us. So, my assumption would be that FURIA are just going to go for kind of the standard push into this, given that they've brought a Maverick and an Ace, so they'll probably go for the games wall as well as Attic and pressure from both sides. It is one thing that we've seen here in Brazil is you don't always get those what we consider standard pushes from 2 sides that you would see in other regions. Sometimes that gets foregone and it doesn't get considered quite as much. But maybe that's not what FURIA will do, but it looks like that, you know, could be.
Psycho on the Warden, obviously expecting some sort of flash grenade action and maybe some smoke for him to dip and dive his way through. To see if that does come out. It does seem to be a popular pick here inside of LATAM. We've seen a couple of Warden picks already smattered through the playdays that we have watched. Pino is somebody that is going to be extremely dangerous. We mentioned earlier about the opening kills for Pino and Muzi, and you can just get the feeling that that's going to start turning on when they get themselves onto defense, particularly with Pino on somebody like the Valkyrie, just able to gather so much information, the potential for a C4 as well. And I think that that is where FURIA need to really watch out now. It is going to be in this roam game, and it makes Miracle's job that little bit more pressured in making sure that those air jabs are in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, you have to be quite acute in the way that you're going to punish NIP and the rotations and the movements that they want to make. And this has been a very quiet first half. Finally, Rare is committing to opening up the game screen wall. There was a player right behind it who just seems to be moved back a little bit. Oh, a nice DBNO onto Pino, but immediately traded there by Muzi. So Fancy does end up being the first kill, or the first death, I should say. Getting caught out in a lot of these early engagements, and oh, I was gonna say Muzi's in a pretty safe position to pick Pino up, but apparently not, because Miracle was down in the basement ready to catch him out. So he collects 2 for his troubles, and suddenly the tables have turned.
Muzi and Pino, that dynamic duo out there on the roam, just getting caught out there by the guys on side of FURIA. A C4 toss is not going to hit highs for anything whatsoever, and that's another piece of utility that NIP are going to lost out on. They also lost a C4 in the hands of Pino when he died downstairs as well, but at least his cameras are able to be used because we're in the final 25 and we need all the information that we can get here for the guys on the side of NIP as the smokes are coming in. Where is Warden? Where are those magical glasses? Does he have the intel? Yes, he is able to pick up one over onto Lender, and a second over onto Highs. Gets flung to the other side of the room with the air jab and tries to reactivate his goggles, but there is not enough time. Rare with the swing, Julio with the response, the diffuser cold on the ground, and in amongst all of this gunfight, and Kamikaze solid as ever. Shotgun to finish. NIP clinched the round.
So disappointing there for FURIA that they weren't able to close out some of those kills that I think had even just one been achieved when they planned to or when they wanted to. I'm thinking that kill onto Psycho immediately after he got air jabbed, then maybe FURIA would have had more of a power position towards the end of that round. But as it stood, Miracle was just left on his own, and he had a crossfire being held onto him. Not all too much you can do in that situation, especially with the time as low as it was. It was in the final couple of seconds. A difficult position to be in. But, you know, nonetheless, things move on, and FURIA still holds the winning scoreline so far in this game. They're going to be having to face NIP in meeting. So actually, we are seeing a ton of meeting. Dining and kitchen does not seem to be a popular sight at all here in Brazil. And it's something that we see way more of in Europe and in North America. In fact, when Oregon first made it into the map pool, meeting and kitchen was a little bit more popular, but it didn't take long for teams to actually shift on over to the preference of dining. So that's just a little bit of a stylistic preference, I guess, that these teams don't necessarily like to lean into quite as much as we've seen in other regions.
I think we saw Santos playing a little bit of kitchen the other day, but as you say, it seems fairly interchangeable between which side you choose, and there is no major preference, and meeting is sometimes the preference between these teams. But I think both work, both are certainly viable. I quite like meeting as a site. I think it gives a little bit more of a connection between that attic and the site, and there's a lot of things that you can, you know, achieve and do with that on both sides. That was a really interesting Valkyrie camera. I'm not sure where the heck that's been thrown. Well, probably in some sort of lampshade somewhere, but it certainly looks quite funky.
It's all about trying to find like the most creative and the most, you know, the new ideas for hiding the Valk cams, because once people get an idea of where the normal ones typically are, then it doesn't take too long to get rid of them or find where they are. So I do like the sort of race against time to figure out the best new places for them. FURIA coming in to the top floor, as we spoke about it before, you want to be gaining control. And now actually, look, they have some attention onto Attic as well, it would seem. I think we saw one of the silhouettes through the wall. That's something that, yeah, of course, there you go. You see Miracle and FURIA, Miracle and Highs all the way up there. That's something that NIP weren't so great at when attacking onto this site, and that meant that Lender, who is oftentimes defending the Attic, had so much room. Psycho's been DBNO'd, and Moosey's going to be finished off as well. Fancy going hunting, getting caught in the wall, and he finds that last player of Psycho. He's going to start opening up the floor now to provide some vertical pressure. That's a beautiful C4 though from Pino, straight through the floor onto Fancy and Rare. Takes away that advantage they were looking for, and now it's a 3 versus 3.
What a level of that C4 was there, just to edge things back into potentially NIP's favour, and Julio to confirm the NIP favour with yet another kill. Pino on a triple for the round as he looks to make short work of the remaining players on side of FURIA. Highs are going to be able to recover the diffuser, as it is just right next to him. Going to go for some nade tosses and see if he can make anything happen, but the likelihood at this point is looking quite slim. There's probably quite a bit of information on his whereabouts, and of course all these holes in the floor mean that sound acts and behaves just a little bit differently, and it can often give you away a slight bit easier. Eyes is still going to have to make a go of this, however, as there is 25 seconds that left remain. Inside a classroom is going to be his first target as he goes for the frag and just tosses it on out there. Pre-fires as he goes, seeing if he can gain any sort of advantage in this gunfight. But look at the players for the side of NIP. They are swarming onto him. Draws for the pistol. He's run out of ammo. We're going for style points here. Can he pop the head, or is this just going to be won out on time? Really keen for the swing. Pino wants that 4th, and he's not quite going to get it as time runs out just in time. But NIP lock the round in regardless.
I mean, we have to say, really, Pino was the difference maker in that round. Not only because of, you know, the normal kill that he got, because he did get a 3K, but it was the C4 most notably. Because NIP were taken down to quite a significant man disadvantage quite early. And on a site like that, having the kind of vertical control that FURIA were looking for is really, really important. And they were on their way to getting it until that C4 came and finished them off. And it completely denied them that opportunity to have that control. It puts you back in the 3 versus 3. And then those players remaining on NIP can just gang up together. And they know that they have this power that's really, really hard for FURIA to then break through. So that alone was just incredibly influential in that round.
It really was. I think we are just taking a short pause here, as we did lose Lender toward the latter parts of that round. It didn't have any impact as he had already died, but we have just paused the lobby to get him back in, and we're going to be jumping in when all the players are good and ready. But by all accounts, this one is living up to the expectations we're expecting out of Game 1. Not where we were expecting to find it today, but I'm sure everybody at home is enjoying it. FURIA 5, NIP 4, a very close game by all accounts so far.
Well, I mean, this is the round where NIP could equalize. FURIA had such a significant advantage in terms of round count. It was a 5-1. We noted how, you know, incredible that was. It's not something that you expect on this map at all, really. You don't expect that kind of level of advantage by the end of one half. And considering these two teams' histories, their stories, what they represent, FURIA, the underdogs who nearly left the region because of relegations, who managed to scrape their way into the 6th Invitational but are still being doubted, and NIP, who nearly took the World Championships last year. You put them in a room together, you shake them up. A 5-1 at the first half to FURIA is not what you expect to be the outcome there. But NIP seriously looking to get their revenge here and bring it back in their favor. And if they take this round, then that'll exactly be what it is. And back in round 7, they did successfully defend this site. So it's looking good for them. And at that point, who knows what's going to happen?
Fancy's going to get himself straight in, looking to gain a bit of intel. Big round here for FURIA. It's a round where they could confirm at least an overtime and a couple of points, which by all accounts would be massive in this matchup. FURIA really need to do something about Pino, though. Pino has been on fire. Double C4 in the last round, multiple kills in previous. Is this going to be the round where he falls? Fancy's got himself into a great position nice and early. Psycho looking to challenge. It seems as though he's got information. Doesn't really want to overcommit. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be stopping any sort of pressure coming through blue. We've got a laser gate, loads of ADSs, and of course the Goyo shield. Psycho really just looking to bide his time here. He can play there pretty much for as long as he likes. There's no fear that he's going to get pushed too heavily. His main concern is, of course, those rear stage stairs.
Keeps going backwards and forwards just to check on it, and also looking into blue as well. His responsibility involves holding both of those angles. It's quite high pressure because he knows that at some point FURIA are going to want to be moving down those stairs. For now, they're not rushing into anything, and they're still just droning out, but highs all the way down to the last sliver of HP. That's really disappointing for him, because now he's got the dangerous job of trying to open up those hatches, and Pino holding onto a C4 could be below that.
Psycho still playing patiently, dancing that merry dance at the bottom of these rear stage stairs, and, well, he's converted himself now over onto pillar. And there's a bit of a push coming in through blue, and Muzi is going to try and deal with that largely. But Psycho has had a nice angle opened on up for him. But we all know what these angles are like. They work in every direction. Full white flash, but no one there to capitalize. It's going to be enough to push him all the way back into laundry. However, still a ton of utility here for FURIA to try and get themselves through. There's so many shields and ADSs that they need yet to burn, and the drop comes through from Fancy. Finds the kill over onto Kamikaze, despite being in the Grismot mine. Got some information as to the whereabouts of his next victim, and looks to push his way all the way on into sight. Grabs a second, he's on a tear. Nothing can stop him at this point, perhaps, but there is a player that is going to be pushing him from Freezer. Got line of sight through the drone hole, but can't make the shots count. Instead goes for the swing, finds the kill onto the Psycho. Second onto Pino, and is he going to get the final one? No, he gets it snatched away from him by miracle, but such a close attempt.
Fancy, this player who we spoke about not showing up enough on the entry, does more than just the entry and nearly aces against NIP, especially when NIP looked to be on a tear. And now look who's on match point. Oh yeah, that would be FURIA. Now NIP's strength and tenacity on their defending half suggests that maybe they could still put this up to a 6-5, potentially take it into overtime. But that was really good play from FURIA. And the fact that Fancy was allowed to move in unpunished like that is kind of disappointing. I'll be totally honest. The fact that he could move down the basement hallway and there was a player in Freezer, the door to which he had moved beyond, and that player didn't swing around and get him. They didn't know he was there. And you had players in Laundry who were trying to hold on to that angle, which is totally fine, but he was in the perfect position to be punished. He catches the feed in the drone hole. He knows where these people are. I was fully expecting him to be punished in that position, and NIP just didn't do it.
It really is one of those situations where he gets the first kill and you're like, wow, it was good. Like he was in a Grismot mine, like he had all that stun and shake and, you know, the ringing in the ears and all this sort of stuff. He gets the first kill, it's great. Oh, actually, he's going to get the second as well. Oh, and the third, and actually he's going to win out on the fourth, and he's going to draw off the pistol for the fifth. And it just seems like of all the people that died in the run-up to that, no one could give the clear enough call-out, or even if they could, nobody could be in a position to react to it because of the other pressure that FURIA were providing, because they're like, well, we know he's in sight, but actually can't get to there at the minute because there's somebody else holding me from here. And it really does, you know, highlight how it is the team pulling together in some cases when someone gets an ace like that, because the players are just so funneled, and all of a sudden you've got an Ash just running like a bull in a china shop, which is essentially what we were dealing with.
Crazy. I would love to see them recreate something like that. I mean, getting multi-kills like that is not something you expect to see every round, but I want to see the confidence that was born from that round affect and influence FURIA in this one. They know now that they are just 1 point away from taking NIP in regulation time. They would get full points for winning if they take this next round. Fancy removing the mute jammer, and he knows now that there is a player in meeting, but they have information that there are also players over towards Kitchen. This is an interesting defensive style from NIP, given that they are back down onto the basement site, so they've really lent into that roam rather than clustering up downstairs, which is what they were doing before. Opening up the breach onto Meeting allows them to pressure the players that were over towards this part of the map, and Fancy's being led in by a drone. So they're getting as much information as possible. Nice surrogate actually there onto the hatch, as that is where Fancy jumped down before. So a little adaptation from NIP, but nothing a projectile can't deal with.
We saw Psycho be quite dangerous yesterday on the roam, and it looks as though he is planning on doing the same. As I say that, dips himself down Freezer, maybe recognizing the weight of this round and recognizing that it could do his team more favors to have a guaranteed gun in the site. The drops come through as Fancy has drops and is going to continually peek now, and peeks over onto Psycho, finding the headshot. The guy's still going absolutely nuts, looking to try and make it a second. The cover of the smoke is going to be enough to give him a moment to breathe, as FURIA look to be shaping up to try and make something happen here. Highs has pushed all the way on into the site, as well as the remaining players from the side of NIP are scrambling, looking to gain any sort of position they can, but they're very much struggling. Miracle from the hatch is going to take out Julio, and Muzi is left to try and find something, holding quite a long angle there all the way through. Kamikaze has some Toxic Babe canisters, and now is the time to use them, but FURIA are yet to suffer a loss. Miracle finds another onto Muzi. This could be it for him. This could be the game. Pino and Kamikaze the only two left. As I say that, Kamikaze falls. It's all now down to Pino. He has a C4, but it's not enough. Miracle's got massive in the freezer, and FURIA, they confirm the game.
Not the outcome that we expected at all for this game, and yet it is a welcome one. The shakeup that we are seeing in Brazil, NIP in shambles, it would seem. They're meant to be the Titans. FURIA are meant to be down at the bottom, and yet the fates have been turned today. Miracle and Lenda and Fancy really showed their worth for FURIA.